Yes, thanks for coming.
Todd, front row.
Hey, Urban, I'm wondering if you could speak to the fact that, obviously you came into this job with some promises that you made to your family. Obviously you've kept those, but now that you're back playing for a national championship, does it prove to you that you can also win coaching this way?
Oh, I don't mean to be disrespectful at all. I've coached the same way. I just think I don't want to keep going back. I want to keep pushing forward. But I have a great staff and I love our players. We push them really, really hard, and that's never changed. And I don't think you can do it any other way. There's some other things I've changed, but the coaching it's the way we do our business, and that I don't think that'll ever change.
Just to follow up, Darren Lee's a kid that you talked to us about, I think, in the spring. You mentioned him as a guy who was going to end up playing for you, but you said nobody really knew about him. Can you just talk about his development?
Yeah, I credit Coach Fickle with that one. He came to camp like 5-6 times. I rejected him probably 4 times. Shows you how good of an evaluator I am. And he's a quarterback for New Albany. And the thing that we loved about him, he kept competing. In this generation, sometimes kids say, I'm not coming to camp. And there was a day where everybody went to camp so you can watch them. You get to watch a little 10-play highlight video, and you got to make a $250,000 decision on a guy to give him a scholarship to Ohio State. And the most great players that I've been around, they come to camp, they tear it up, you offer them a scholarship, they shake your hand, and they go play. And that's what Darren Lee. That's why I love that kid, competitor. And as a result, Coach Fickle made the right decision. He worked with them. They have a great relationship, and that's the best way to go about this business. To go compete and work with a guy that might be your coach someday. It's been that's a great story.
Front row, Bill.
Yes. Now that you've looked at Oregon, what jumps out at you on tape? Obviously, the thing people always jump at is their tempo.
Yeah, I have not. I've watched a lot of their offense. Not to the point where I'm going to make decisions. I give suggestions because we run similar offenses, a lot of similar plays. Their tempo, and then the thing that, the best player, the Heisman Trophy winner, and he should have been the Heisman Trophy winner. I'm glad he got it. For a lot of reasons, I'm glad he got it. I just love who he is, and I've been around him. When he was a young player, I went out there and visited, and I remember them telling me about him. I think Chip recruited him when he was, is it Puno? Which high school is it? I know it. St. Louis, yeah, the other great one. And was a backup for a while, and just a great kid. And I think that's so good for college football to see a guy like that and win it. Great player, great person, great leader. You can tell. Plays his best when it's hard. Plays his best. The Michigan State game was a perfect example. He extends plays, and he's the biggest challenge. Tempo offense is really hard, but tempo offense with an average player, it's not that hard. He's the one that keeps the chains moving, and that's when tempo gets you. The risk of tempo offense, which I debated for years, is you 3-and-out them, and then 24 seconds you just took off the clock, and you're playing a good team. That's not good. So there's plus and minuses. You have a quarterback like that, that's usually pluses.
Question about Jacoby Warren, an undersized guy. I know you love the family. Did you ever expect him to be what he's been, and what has he meant to this team?
He is a tribute to the family. He's every Bourne I've ever met is like that, and I've had 2 of them, and if there's another one, I want him. That's coming along. There's something in the no, there's not. It's the way they were raised. They're tough. They fight. Did I ever think when I first shook his hand when I got here in 2012, and he was already committed to us, and he walked through the door. I was like, uh-oh, what's this now? And I actually started thinking maybe he can be a blocking fullback. And he's turned out to have a heck of a year. He's tough. He's a very good player, great leader, great team guy. Yeah, I love Jacoby.
Front row, Tim.
Yeah, Urban, you've spoken about this a couple of times, but I call it your sabbatical now, but you're off. You spent time out there in Oregon. You got to know Chip Kelly. What was it about conversations with him and stuff about the tempo and stuff that really intrigued you?
Probably the thing that set it off was a coach named Nick Aliotti, who I've known him for 25 years, his defense coordinator, long time, and a friend of mine from back when I recruited California 25 years ago. We used to have dinner together, and he's as old school as you get. And you go in there, they're playing Lion King music. They're have like a DJ at practice and bizarre stuff now. And I remember I was like, what is this? This is, I work for Earl Bruce, so I can't, we didn't have Lion King and DJs at practice when Earl was coaching here. But I was talking to Nick Aliotti, and Chip and I are good friends, and he says, this is the only way to do it. I looked at him and said, what are you talking about? This is the only way to do it. And for Chip Kelly to create a culture, and Belichick talks about it all the time, where everyone's aligned. Everyone. You walk in the facility, it's about win the day. It's about, I'm not here to promote Oregon, but I'm here to promote, I would like to think that people walk in the Ohio State football facility now, and it took a little while, that from Amy, my assistant, to everybody associated, the facility person, everybody, this is the way we do it. Really not a whole lot of conversation about it. And we have a culture here too. And so that's what I took. Instead of saying, let's go take their culture, it's something I always believed. When you see teams fail, it's not because of bad players. It's not because of bad coaches. It's because of alignment issues. I'm convinced of that more now than ever after being in this business for so long.
And their up-tempo offense, obviously you took some of that too. You wanted to go that direction.
Yeah, we at Florida, there's a misunderstanding that we were a big tempo team. We weren't. And I fought that. We actually sent Dan Mullen, who was my coordinator, sent him to Missouri when Missouri had a breakout season. And they came back, and I snatched that after about 4 days of spring practice. And it was just technique went to hell, and our receiver coach is over there signaling instead of coaching receivers, and we ended that real fast. And the negative of what's happened with the tempo offense is you have an incredible leader at quarterback. He simply just takes a snap now. He's not able to. It's not as easy. In the old days, the stories of Joe Montana looking at Jerry Rice and winking at him, and there's still that intangible value of this great game of football that lets me and you do this. And it's harder when that guy you're winking at's 25 yards away. So and I had Pounceys and I had Tebow, and I didn't want to lose that huddle. Obviously, we've lost it. And there's still opportunity for great leadership, I've learned. But that was the thing that held us back from going full up-tempo, 4, 5, 6 years ago.
You saw that as the future, though, didn't you?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So everybody says it's not.
Yeah.
It is. It's an advantage for the offense. And if you don't take it, then that's fine. But I know Alabama is moving in that direction. And, is it full speed all the time? We're not. But that gives us an advantage at times.
Front row right, Austin.
Herbert, I know your overall offensive philosophy doesn't change regardless of your quarterback. It seemed like there were tweaks along the way from Braxton to JT seemed more horizontal with the passing game. Is Cardale, it seems like it's more vertical. Is that fair?
That's more the defense we're playing. I think that's very observant, and that's true if you did a little chart like we do. There's more downfield throws. The last two teams we faced challenged us to go do that. There's some teams we played this year when they're off, you have to take the underneath stuff. And, Wisconsin was going to be, we knew what we were getting into, and it was going to be shot day. And if we don't hit those, it might be a different outcome. And then same thing with Alabama, really aggressive defense, challenge you, bump and run coverage. Hitches against bump and run aren't any good. Soft quarters is when you see us take the short stuff. So that's more, I wouldn't say it's more the personnel, it's more what the defense gives you.
With Evan Spencer, you've talked about how valuable he's been, not just catching the football all season long, but that last game.
Unbelievable.
Does that sum it up, throwing a block, throwing a touchdown?
He's the MVP. He's the MVP of our team. He's the leader of our team. He's a guy that at the right time I'll probably make an executive decision and make him a captain. He's a wonderful kid that he's really what, to me, football is all about. He's a reason, him and sitting in the special teams meetings, him, just throwing himself in people's way and blocking. And, the play that sprung, the one you're talking about, the one that sprung Zeke for an 85-yard touchdown he took two guys out. And there's not one person in this facility shocked that he did that.
Second row, David.
We're going off Austin's question a little bit. Nick Saban kind of made an interesting comment after the game that Cardale was kind of opened up and maybe showcased your outside speed in a way you did not see on film the first 11 games. You mentioned it was maybe what the defense is giving you, but all your quarterbacks have different skill sets. What maybe does Cardale give you that makes it a different look?
He's a better pocket guy because he's big. With Braxton certainly early in his career, he was a guy that we try to move around a little bit. First, one reason was our offensive line was just starting to be good, and you have to help them out by moving the pocket. And he's dynamic outside the pocket. JT's a 6 foot, he'll tell you he's 6'2", he's 6'1", he's not. I don't want to get into what he is, but he's a great player that, there's times where he's a very good deep ball thrower too. The one thing, all three of those guys are very good deep ball throwers. But Cardell is the first guy I've had, I want to say, since Alex, that is up there that can high to low a pass over the top of a defensive line, and that's rare. That's hard to find those guys.
Front row, Dave Biddle.
Your punt return game struggled against Alabama. Granted, you're facing an excellent punter, but what can be done to tweak that at this very late stage of the season? And just your thoughts about that.
Yeah, the kick return struggled too. Our return game at times this year was good. I don't know if we are. Kerry's going to do that with our special units tomorrow, but we led the nation in field position. Number one on offense, number one on defense. And I don't know if they say that's never been done before. And that's when you see those signs, I guess they're covered up, but there's signs that talk about field position in here nonstop. And it's called the plan to win, and it's something we spend a lot of time on. And it's just a great example of when it's no longer theory. I call it to our players, it's no longer theory, it's testimony. That how do you go win a game? In theory, this is how you win it. Then we can prove it now when we do all kinds of statistical conversation with our players. So to answer your question, it was the first time since, I want to say, the first or second game we didn't return the ball outside the 20 on a punt, on a kickoff, and we did it twice. And punt return really struggled. So what can we do? We just work hard at it. It's not just the returner, it's the hold-up guys. And we realized we faced a bunch of talented guys too. Their coverage units, Alabama's, were excellent.
Parents being able to travel to bowl games, parents of players, I know you've been outspoken about this. What do you think can be done? I know they get $800. Do you think everything should be paid for? Do you think there's middle ground?
No, you can't do that. I think each family should get a stipend, and I'd be disappointed that doesn't happen. I'm waiting for one of you guys to just blow it up, and no one seems to want to do that. I don't know.
More than a stipend than what they get right now. Do they get $800? Is that right per?
Yeah, my family couldn't go there for $800.
Right,
So I'm the Big Ten Commissioner's office. I imagine there, you give them $800 each. And give our coaches $800. It's all across the board. Our administration, you guys get $800 to get down there. I just don't think that's right. And it's a 15-game season now. It is what it is. You have 85 scholarships. That's a lot of wear and tear on these players. I'm noticing it. I can see it. And I've never practiced like this. We're being very cautious right now because your bodies weren't meant. This is back when they did the 85 scholarship rule. There's 12 games. And the 3 that they added aren't against 1AA or, whatever they say, the smaller schools. The 3 that you're playing are Wisconsin, Alabama, Oregon. Just throw those on the end of the schedule. And that's why when I hear people make, these committees, you need some coaches on these committees to have some really good conversation about players' families and wear and tear, and maybe less about TV contracts. So that'd be real interesting. You guys are allowed to write that. Stir it up a little bit.
But if you push that through official channels.
I'm trying to coach our game, man. I can't. It's your job. That's other people's. I know Gene Smith. The great thing about Gene Smith, he's practiced. He's a football player. So when I have good conversation with Gene Smith, it's not now. No, what about the billboards? What about the? Are we going to sell the shirts? Or are we not going to sell the shirts? What about your jacket you wear on the sideline and all those things? And I get that. That's all important. But when Gene Smith, and that's why I have so much respect for him, when you talk about the player, he looks at me and he goes, I understand. I got it. Here's what we need, Gene. Here's why. I'm good. And he's played football before. And that's why I heard someone said he came out and said that he's going to, that doesn't surprise me one bit, because Gene Smith understands the student athlete.
Front row left, Doug.
Urban, beyond tempo stuff with you and Oregon offensively, just the way you attack teams with play calls and that kind of stuff, how similar are we talking about philosophically?
Well, Tom is a disciple. He studied it for many years. He studied, actually Chip Kelly first started studying when I was at Utah. He went from New Hampshire and he started that evolution, and that'd be a good conversation for Chip. But there's a lot of similarities. between the two programs, as far as how do you go attack a defense.
And then how does that play into this game at all? Is your defense used to playing against your offense so they can defend Oregon?
That's a great question. I think what remains to be seen. I know I've gone in there and tell our defense what we don't like, what bothers us, and I'm sure they're doing the same thing. They see it every day in practice. So, and there are some things they do much better than we do on the perimeter, and there's things we do a little better than them. So it's not exactly the same, but there's a similar philosophy. So I'm sure there's a lot of conversation between the two staffs, more than normal games.
And before last season, we talked so much about the 1,000-yard rusher and what Carlos did last year in this offense, what Zeke has done this year in this offense. And you told us this since you got here, but that power run aspect of what your offense does, with what we've seen Zeke and the line do the last 2 games, just how vital is that to how you guys attack things?
Yeah, there was a hit on our, so you never had a 1,000-yard rusher, and in one year I had 2 900-yard rushers. We're always, guys get hurt or, it's not by purpose. Sometimes we have 3 good running backs and they all have a lot of numbers. So it's worked out the last 2 years. I don't hear that much anymore, and I think we're going to get a 2,000-yard rusher someday. I would love to have that. But that's usually we don't like to, we have other good players that touch the ball. The thing I look at the end of the year is more rushing yardage. And we try to be a top 10 in the country rushing, and most of the time we are. Most of the time we're a very good rushing team. It just depends on, your personnel and who's actually carrying the ball. And it's all about the development of the offense line. So, the concept of our offense is a power offense in a spread set. That's ours. It's not the chuck and duck and basketball and grass and all that. It's a power offense. And that's why when I first, I'll go to recruits home and say, well, you guys, rushing the ball. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then we have to be armed with all the stats, which we are.
Front row left, Rusty.
Urban, you talk about wear and tear on the players. I'm wondering, when you came here, there were some who questioned your health situation. I'm just wondering if you're living up to what's up on the wall.
Doing great, yeah.
Everybody's okay with your family? They all think that you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing?
Great. Yeah, they like winning. It's a bunch of smiles. Yeah, everything. Thanks for asking, and everything's great. It couldn't be better, and very blessed. And it's a challenge because you get consumed, and there's a little consumption right now. You're down to the 11th hour after this one. After the 12th, and you get a little time to take a deep breath, and everybody gets that. But that doesn't mean we all watch out for it like a good family. How's it going? And how's your weight? How's this? And you need to lose weight now instead of you need to gain weight.
And did you have any doubts at all losing a 1,500-yard rusher, whatever Carlos was?
Yeah.
Have that fall on Ezekiel's shoulders? Did you?
Well, here's an interesting stat. We have 7 players off of last year starting in the national. I don't know if it's ever been done before. 7 players left our program a year ago and are starting, not playing, not backups, not practice squads, starting in the National Football League. In the history of college football, I'd like to know if that's ever been done. I don't think it has. Starting. That tells you how good that team was last year. And you take 3 offensive linemen, you take the starting tailback, best receiver, best linebacker, and best corner. I think there might be another one in there. There's 7 guys starting. That's why I knew that, when especially the 2 juniors left, Shazier and Roby, and as a coach, you're like, how do you replace that? So I thought a year, and I thought these young kids were pretty good coming up, and that's why I made a comment. In my own heart, I said, this is, 15? This 15 team is watch out. And then they got better and better and better and better. That's the great thing about college. You're a pro, you don't probably see that much improvement because they're veterans already.
Did Elliott in particular step in for Carlos?
We had big plans for, we had a lot of confidence in him. It started kind of slow. His last 2 games are really productive. He's a little tougher than I thought he would be. His post-contact yards are probably a little bit more than I thought they would be. He's a really tough runner. And so a little bit surprised, but it's not like we didn't have high expectations for him.
Far left, Matt.
I remember you saying when they came up with the playoff that you can't imagine having to play a game and then preparing for another one. And I'm just wondering, you're living it right now. How is it? How difficult is it? Or is it just a grind?
I ask our players. I'm not one of those guys been known to say, I check with our players constantly. Now, the guys I trust, how you hanging in there? I mean, that last game, that was a hammer now. I mean, even our players looked at me after the game like, wow. You know, because Alabama, especially in the trenches, you know, you face a team like Alabama, I mean, gigantic human beings. And so, you know, I'm watching it like I never have before. I mean, from the amount of contact we're having to off their feet, and that's for my strength coach. And we have a performance team here, and we use a GPS system. We do hydration, so we test our hydration every day. And that's where I think this game has changed, and it's in a trajectory where it's really good for the player because you try to keep them out of harm's way as far as your body. You know, the soft tissue, I can go on a dissertation about this stuff because we've studied it so hard, but the soft tissue injuries should not, if you do a good job of your strength staff performance team, that player shouldn't go out there if they're dehydrated. And there's much better ways to find out now than there was years ago. So, and I'm telling you, for 15 game season, I don't know if you could do it any other way. You old school it with 15 games, you go jog out there with 35 players. So you have to be very cautious.
Do you have, I mean, this sounds silly to say because you're playing for the national championship, but do you have any concerns to get back to that level that you were at in the Sugar Bowl, you know, next Monday night?
That's our concern. And then getting ready for a tempo offense, which means you got to be practicing hard. That's what you just said is the concern for this game.
Far left, Pat.
Yeah, Urban, you touched on it a little bit, but your 2013 signing class, what surprised you most, I guess, about their maturity and being ready to play and be impact players this quickly?
Yeah, really disappointed we didn't play them. A lot of those guys redshirted. And there was some, I was very disappointed, and they weren't ready. We don't redshirt. It's not like we're going to say, hey, let's save them for this, 15? Hey, let's save them for the 17 year and let's have a heck of a year. You can't do that now because they're all gone anyways after 3. If you're a great player, you're gone. So play them. If they're not good enough, don't play them. And that's the mentality we have when we go out and recruit. When they're here, we don't talk, well, we're going to save you and let you mature a little bit. You know, that used to be a big deal in college football. At this level, and Pete Carroll, I stole from him one day I was listening to him talk at USC back in like 06. And he says, we don't redshirt guys here. I thought, how cool is that? Go out and recruit guys that can go play because kids want to play. So I was disappointed, Pat, that they didn't play more their first year because there's a handful of those guys are redshirted. And some of those guys won't be here for their 5th year, and so we screwed up. We didn't get another year out of them.
But now the level they're performing at.
Oh, yes. Am I surprised? I'm sorry. What?
Just have the number of guys from that class that are performing really well now for you. Does that surprise you this year?
I think that Darren Lee, Eli Apple, Joey Bosa does not surprise me. Ezekiel Elliott, you know, someone, you gave me those names one day, was walking off the field, and I was like, wow. Yeah, some of them did surprise me.
We're going to take a pause for just a moment. Coach, I want you to, there's some pretty good news. Football playoff is going to provide us. Okay. The college football playoff per NCAA rules is going to provide $1,250 per parent for the families this year.
That's great. This year.
This year. It's just.
You sure I can say that?
Yeah, it's blame Austin. So apparently, we just saw a release from Gina Leahy from the college football playoff that has come out that per NCAA rules, the college football playoff is going to reimburse families of the players up to $1,250 per parent to go to the game this year. Yes, per parent. So two parents.
So that's $2,500.
So $2,500.
There you go. Nice
for
job.
this year's game. Just coming out.
Can you react to that?
Clay, you're next. Go ahead.
That's great. That's the best news I heard.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's great news.
You started the fight, and I know Andy Apple, some of the parents on this team have been quite vocal about it.
And Gene, don't forget our athletic. Gene Smith's a powerful man in the sport, and all due respect to all other ADs, that's for him to step out on the line like that. That's good. That's good. I'd like to see our commissioners jump out on deck too and say this should happen because they're all employees of the student athlete. Student athletes don't work for us. We would take them away, and how's our job? You know, take away the student athletes and who you coaching, who you AD, and who you commissioner and for. And that's where I'm really fired up over that, Jerry. That just kind of made my day. That's good. So families get to watch their son play in the first ever national championship with providing hardship that they'll have to take loans, or worse than that, you're going to take it from someone that you're not supposed to take money from, and then we'll miss a bowl game. You know, that's outstanding news.
When you see that, Jerry, that go from 800 for what Ohio State up to 2,500.
I don't know, I'm just reading it, but I would assume that Ohio State is still going to provide its reimbursement for that.
Coach, could I ask you one other thing? Just how your preparation for this game differs from the two title games you've won? Do you go back in your notes at all?
You know, went back, just practices are a little different. You know, those ones we had 37 days to prepare. I remember in 06, I think it was 37 or 47, it's some ridiculous number. And that was the 06 was the first one that was removed from the traditional bowl date. So it's just a much different. This is a one-game shot that really have 4 practices and shoulder pads. And tomorrow we're going to give our guys a day off of practice, not a day off of preparation. But you just can't go any. The tempo we went the last 3 days, you just can't. You're going to break them down.
Second row left, Marlon. Hireman.
Hartman is what's the word? Probable, and Dontre Wilson is probable now.
Second row left, Marla.
You mentioned on the TV and the basketball game about the Penn State game, sort of you felt like that was kind of the, I don't know, turning point. I just wondered if, was that mentally?
Mental and toughness, and you don't win that game unless a group of players like Billy Price, one of the Pat was talking about 2013. He's part of that 2013 group that grew up. He was not very good. He was struggled last year, struggled early in the game in the season this year, and every player has it. When you become a player, it's like it's time, and that was his time. And he did a great job against a very good defense line. And I'll never forget looking out there and seeing that student body, 110,000 people, that it was scripted. I'd say 99% of the time you lose that game. It was scripted that way. They came back, we fell behind, and they scored in overtime. And we got to go down there and score with a freshman quarterback and a freshman lineman and freshman this, freshman that. And they toughened up and got it in there.
Back row left, Ari.
Urban, every year you're going to take 10 to 12 in-state guys per class. And it was kind of the same way in Florida just because of how much talent is in the state. Can you imagine how hard it might be for Oregon to put together full classes when 95% of their classes are from out-of-state, far-away places? Because you get to jump off after you get the foundation and maybe spend more time on it. Can you comment maybe back on your time at Utah?
Yeah, Utah had the same issue. You know, I talked to other coaches in other states that have that, and that's hard. Matter of fact, when I was offered the job at Utah, that was the only thing that was, because there's great football players in Utah, just not enough of them. So that's certainly, it's a little bit of a challenge, but obviously they've overcome it because there's a bunch of great players there.
You've been a proponent of alternate uniforms and things like that because of the impact it has on recruiting. How much do you think?
Not really. A proponent? I just say okay.
Okay.
Yeah. A big difference.
Yeah. How much do you think that having Nike uniforms and gear and things like that can have an impact on an individual?
Nike's cheating, man. I'm saying that because the owner is a very good friend of mine. Every school has their niche, and God bless Oregon for finding their niche, and that is a huge part of it, man. Their new uniforms, the stuff, and do we listen? And we're big Nike people here as well, and when they bring something to the table, it's hard to say no. And I always ask our players. I ask Archie Griffin. I ask Gene Smith, because this is different now. Ohio State, you start going too far, and there's a lot of old timers out there, me included, that get a little nervous that you start straying away from the old traditional stuff. So you got to be careful. And I think we're classy, yet we still maintain our traditional uniforms. I hear we have new ones. I haven't seen them yet.
Do you think that, like, whenever you're talking to, whenever you're on the trail, do you guys ever address that with players?
Recruits?
Yeah,
Oh,
how
yeah.
much do they like that stuff?
They love it. I bring pictures and all that. Act like I like it. I've become a proponent of it.
If we could try to hold to one question now, just because I want to be able to get everyone who wants to ask a question an opportunity. Second row, Bob.
Urban, in your experience, either as a coach or as a coach, do you recall a situation similar to Cardale's where he came from where he came from, the games of the magnitude that he started now? It could be 3 in a row.
Bob, I don't think so. Tom Herman and I were talking about the other day, and we kind of had a quick rundown history lane here, memory lane, and I'm not sure I have, and there's not many people in here that really know how far he's come. And there's a couple people that really, I think they've gotten the credit because I've talked about them a little bit. And that's Teddy Ginn and Michelle, his mentor and guidance. You know, because sometimes you hear the word mentor, and I get a cold chill shooting down my spine because mentors, I don't call it, they're the third uncles. Third uncles aren't good. They're bad because third uncles are worried about third uncles. The people that, they could have ruined Cardale. He could have been a statistic. There could have been a big asterisk next to his name. Whatever happened to so-and-so, because he was given the wrong information and given the wrong guidance. Instead, they looked and said, what do we need to do, coach? And I said, this is it, or it's over. And they said, it's done.
Far left.
It was great. Great story.
Tom, no, you're good. Rob Aller, second row middle.
Urban, you've been the underdog 5 times since you've been here. You've won them all. Doing something right. How hard do you push that button? And you're the underdog again. How hard will you play that?
We don't do that until it gets close to game time, and that's our strength coach and I just kind of feel where we're at. We usually swing a little bit with it.
A little more detail there?
And I don't mean to be like sly about it. I mean, it's just we do. It depends on the team. It depends where we're at. You know, I don't like pull out my underdog script that we have in my file in there. It's what kind of team you got, who we playing. You know, since I've been a head coach, we've gone berserk with it a few times. You know, and there's other times. This last one, we didn't really play it up much. You know, I think I made the comment that I really believe that the shot in the arm was Wisconsin beating Auburn. That was when I saw everybody walked a little different to the bus, and when I saw that, you know, you kind of read your team as you're talking about it, and I can see everybody that was legitimacy of what they've done. So this one, I don't know what we're doing yet.
You played 2 Heisman guys that went to New York. You held them in check, Amari Cooper, Melvin Gordon. You've got another one. Different philosophies. Do you go in, let's stop those guys? Sometimes, you know, let them.
You played them right in a row?
Yeah, in a row.
Wow.
Do
I realize that.
Do you say, let's stop those guys, or they're going to get theirs, let's...
You know, of course you say that's the target, you know, and that's you try to simulate that at practice. You can't simulate him. I was thinking about moving a receiver sometime, but then he can't throw, and because he is such a good athlete. But that's the focal point, you know. When Cooper was on the field or off the field, we knew last week, you know, Melvin Gordon, we had stuff all over the kids' lockers about stop this guy, and they're, you know, it's very clear. And if it's not now, it certainly is getting clearer. He's the guy.
Front row left, Lori.
Coach, you mentioned that 7 starters in the NFL. That team didn't have quite the success of this team, and I'm wondering what that says about this club's alignment and where that might come from.
I think that's a great point. I think that's one that I certainly didn't devalue. It was one you just don't know because you can't measure that. You can measure a 40-yard dash and how many times they can do 225 and those type of things and how hard they throw a ball, but you don't. That's why I point to the Penn State game. We played awful against Penn State in a tough environment. And that's the beautiful thing about athletics in this game is that the immeasurables are the thing that win games. And that's when recruiting, that's why I go back to, I can go off and off about this, but get them to camp and find out what they're made of. You know, here's a guy that runs for 4,000 yards, but they're playing bad teams, and he's bigger and faster than everybody, and you find out when you get him that he's not that. And that's the intangible value of this great game of football that's been around way before us, and we're going to be here way after us. And that's what this team developed and has. No question it has.
All right, that 7 starters thing, though, to your team out there, when you're talking to them before practice, what was the gist of that?
I can't remember.
NFL starters?
Oh, I think it's just the way we, I think we always talk about theory and testimony. And when Ed Warner teaches an offensive lineman, this is the way it's supposed to be. It's not theory anymore. When we first got here, it was, because it's a little bit different. But now that every player that he's coached is in the National Football League, it's testimony. And same thing with we talk about our quarterback play, that, every quarterback we've ever had our hands on has either been invited to New York or there's been conversation about it. That's not theory anymore. It's testimony about just because you're getting it. Players get it from all angles now. Uncles and peoples, and this is why you're doing this. We're good. Just follow the plan, and that's all that was about.
All right, Tom.
Can you talk more about the progression of your offensive line? Basically,
4 new guys starting, a guy playing a new position, the job that Warner's done.
Yeah, he's a hell of a coach. I'm glad he's with us, and certainly we'll get a head coach opportunity someday. Like all, the plan is, well, I'll release the plan, but he's going to be instrumental in the offense again. And the good thing is, and this might be a good time to talk about, is I'm losing a great coach with Tom Herman, but we didn't. This isn't Rice or Iowa State's offense. We said, hey, let's try that. This is the Ohio State offense, and next year, guess what's going to be? The Ohio State offense. The year after, it's going to be, because Ed Warner will get an opportunity probably down the road, and everybody's going to be, well, what do you guys do? Well, we lost a great coach, but we're still running the Ohio State offense. And I think that's when you look at transition of coaches. And Ed Warner, to just reiterate what you said, has done a great job with development of the offensive line, but he's a big picture line coach, which is what makes him so valuable.
Far left, Tom Reed.
Can you talk about the progression of Joshua Perry since last year and what growth you've seen in him?
Yeah, that's a great question because he's one of my favorite guys. He'll be a captain for us next year. He's a guy that just does everything right. He's already had multiple job offers outside of football from our Real Life Wednesdays. He's a guy that I'd hire in a minute if he wants to coach. He's a guy that just represents the Perry family and Ohio State the right way. And normally there's a high correlation between that and playing very well on the field, and he's doing it.
And right next to Tom, Bruce.
It's not been that long since these two teams played in the Rose Bowl. Neither coach is here that was here then, and both programs have been in front of the NCAA since then, taking some hits, some sanctions, but are back at this level pretty quickly. What does that say to you about the programs?
Oh, I can't speak for Oregon. I can speak for Ohio State, because I was here during that transition. At a school like Ohio State, you should be able to rally back pretty quick. I do, and that's why. Anytime there's transition or issues you have to deal with, sometimes you get a little bit of a void in a recruiting class, and it's amazing nowadays. One year, but we have a really motto around here. There's no excuses from the coaches or players, or I don't want to hear about this. We don't have this. We don't have this, and the previous staff. No, we're good. They're your players now, and they're our players now, and do the best you can with them. So that's what I really admire our coaching staff and our players for. To answer your question, be able to rebound, because it was tough now. You lost 7 games. They came walking in and said within, I think it was there like 3 or 4 days, by the way, you can't go to a bowl game. And I remember I sat down for a second like, oh no. And not so much for that year, but you lose that recruiting class or a group of seniors who are allowed to get up and walk out that door. You get your brains kicked in that year, you're not going to, it sends you back a while. And what happened was those group of seniors, if you remember, not one left. And that was a very bad football team that became very, very good because of their leadership, and they stuck around. And that's you just bring back some great memories, because that's when this all started. When that group of players said, we're not going to leave here. We love Ohio State too much. And they could all picked up and left. We certainly wouldn't be where we are today if they didn't do that.
A few more questions. Gentleman in the third row with the glasses.
How much do you live vicariously through the people you lead, and how much personal satisfaction do you allow yourself at this point in the season?
Vicariously through people.
In other words, do you take joy out of what other people are feeling at this point of the year because of your accomplishments?
Oh, I don't know. That's a hell of a question, man. You got me there. I don't know. You're going to stump me there. Apologize for not. All right. 1-0. You're up. I'll get you back though.
Far left, Marty.
There is a second part. I don't want to be disrespectful. Okay.
Coach, I hope this isn't redundant, but you've touched on this a bit. But this isn't a normal week. I'm sure you want to try to instill that in your kids a bit, but it's uncharted. What challenges and/or fears does that extra week present?
The biggest one is the health of the player. The wear and tear that we have to be leery of. I was kind of worried about, is there outside influences? I'm really glad we're here. We're not going down a week early and spending a week in Dallas, and I have to deal with all that nonsense. And we're gonna get all our hard practices done. I think that's the way they did it was perfect. We don't leave until after our Wednesday practice, which is big. And you get down there, and then they kind of tie you down, and it's not all kinds of, we have already done the bowl experience. So those are my biggest concerns because I didn't do any research on this. When we won the game, I remember, okay, now I look at my strength coach, what's next? And we sat down and started going through it. I was excited that they weren't, because that would be a mess if you had to play another game and then had that same, the bowl experience. That'd be tough. Does that answer your question?
Sorry, last three questions. Brian?
Herb, to follow up on the offensive line question from earlier, to run the ball like you did against Alabama, does that tell you that this offensive line is playing at about as high levels as you want?
The last 2 weeks. Yeah, anytime you have back-to-back 200-yard rushers, 200-yard rushing performances by a back, and they protect. The defensive lines the last 2 weeks were different. Wisconsin was much different, and they're more movement-oriented, and then the tree trunks, the big guys against. Big guys that stayed fresh. So yeah, no question. This is as well as they're playing.
Last couple questions. Toledo TV?
You have 2 years of D'Angelo Mariota, but they only have 2 games on your quarterback. You had a trick play last game. How much of a game of poker do you try to do to keep it to your advantage?
Oh, I don't know if there's, because once again, there's been a lot made about the difference between Cardell and maybe JT. For a guy that's very involved in the play calling, there's not that much of a difference. It's very similar. We're not calling more deep balls because Cardell's our quarterback. We're calling more deep balls because we're getting more bump and run. So I don't think there's much of a chess match. We know kind of what they're going to try to do, and that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of adjustments that go on during the course of a game. But it's regardless if it's Cardell or JT or Braxton.
And final question. David?
Urbana, Ohio, about an hour west of here, is dropping the A from its name on Monday. It's going to be called Urban, Ohio. Any reaction?
Urbana, Ohio is what?
It's going to be called Urban, Ohio on Monday. Any reaction?
You're kidding. Urbana, Ohio is dropping the A.
It's about an hour from here.
Wow. That's very nice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Coach.